The bread basket was still warm when she ended it. Not officially, Natalie didn't use those words. She just set her wine glass down carefully and said Derek had offered her a promotion, a real salary, a closing dinner in Boston, flights and a hotel and everything, and watched Marcus's face to see what he would do with that. He said he was proud of her. She said, "You're doing that thing, the insecure thing." He said, "I didn't say anything." She said, "You didn't have to." That was the first cut, small, clean, the kind you don't feel until later. The second one came 20 minutes later, after the birthday song started up at the round table near the back, and the whole restaurant turned warm and loud with it. "Derek built something from nothing," she said. "I see what that looks like up close now. You went to school for business, Marcus. You have the degree." She shook her head slightly, looking for a softer version of what she actually meant. She didn't find one. "He doesn't take orders for pasta. He built a life where he doesn't have to." The table between them felt like a very large distance. Marcus thought about the $31,000 in loans, the cracked dashboard. Every time he had said soon and just give me a little more time, he thought, she has been keeping score this whole time and never told me what the game was. He picked up the bread he'd been tearing, ate it, tasted nothing. "You should go to Boston," he said. Just that. In the parking lot, she said she loved him. He believed her. He unlocked her car door anyway because that was what he did, and he was not going to stop tonight just because everything had changed. He watched her headlights disappear, stood there 4 minutes without moving, then drove home at exactly the speed limit because he did not trust himself to go faster. He sat on the edge of his bed in the dark with his face in his hands. He didn't cry. He just sat with something that had her voice in it, and the word pasta, and a stranger's birthday song playing in the background while he got quietly taken apart. He didn't know yet what he was going to do with it. That part came later. She didn't break up with him in person. That was the part that stayed with him longest. 2 years and 3 months, and Natalie ended it in 3 text messages on a Tuesday afternoon while Marcus was on his break at the restaurant, still in his apron, eating a sandwich he didn't finish. He read them twice. Then he put his phone face down on the table and went back to work because he had 4 tables waiting and rent was due in 9 days, and falling apart was a luxury he could not afford on a Tuesday. He held it together through the dinner rush, through the 8 o'clock cover and the 9 o'clock cover and the couple at table 7 who sent their pasta back twice. He held it together through checkout and side work and the drive home. He made it all the way to his front door. Then his keys missed the lock on the first try, and something about that, just the keys broke the whole thing open. He called her, she didn't answer. He called again. She picked up on the 3rd call, and her voice was careful and distant in the way voices get when someone has already moved on emotionally and is now just waiting for the paperwork to finish. She said it wasn't working. She said they wanted different things. She said she cared about him, and she always would. Marcus listened to all of it, standing in his hallway with his jacket still on. Then he asked the only question that actually mattered. "Is it Derek?" 3 seconds of silence. "It's not about Derek." Which was not the same as no. He didn't sleep that night or the next one. He went to work, came home, stared at the ceiling, went back to work. He lost 6 pounds in 2 weeks without trying. He ran into their mutual friend Jordan at a gas station and said he was fine and meant none of it. The worst moment came 11 days later. He drove past her building without planning to. Derek's Range Rover was in the visitor's lot. Her light was on, 4th floor. He sat across the street in his Civic until he felt ashamed of himself. Then he drove home. Then he sat with the shame too. Nobody saw the turning point because it didn't announce itself. It was a Thursday evening in a rented conference room above a parking garage. Bad coffee in a styrofoam cup. 12 people networking in that stiff, uncomfortable way people do when they're still figuring out what they're building. Marcus sat in the back and listened. He had nothing to sell. No pitch, no business cards. He just kept showing up because sitting alone in his apartment was slowly hollowing him out, and he needed to be around people who were moving forward even if he wasn't yet. He had quit the restaurant 6 months after the breakup, not dramatically. He handed in his notice on a Wednesday, thanked his manager, and walked to his car with his hands steady and his heart pounding. He started with estate sales on weekends, thrift stores, flea markets. He had always had an eye for things worth more than their price, vintage pieces, limited runs, furniture that just needed someone to recognize what it was. He sold online. The first month he made $400. He put it in a separate account and didn't touch it. The next month, $800. The month after, $1,200. Not freedom, not even close. But proof, his own proof, built on his own time with no one's permission and no one watching. He saw a therapist named Dr. Wellman on Tuesday evenings. In their third session, Dr. Wellman asked him what he wanted his life to look like in 5 years. Marcus went silent. Every answer he reached for had Natalie's name buried somewhere inside it. That was the real work, not the money. Not the hustle, learning who he was when she was no longer the center of everything. A man named Calvin changed the direction of everything with one sentence. They met at the Thursday group. Calvin ran a logistics consultancy, drove a Camry, wore the same 2 blazers on rotation without apology. One evening he studied Marcus's numbers quietly and said, "You understand what things are worth before the market does. That's not a hobby. That's a skill." Marcus drove home and didn't sleep. Not from anxiety. For the first time in almost a year, his mind was moving forward instead of circling back. That was the difference. Marcus wasn't trying to be seen. He wasn't posting to prove something, wasn't dressing differently to send a message, wasn't engineering a comeback for an audience of one. He was just working. Quietly, consistently, without looking up, the world started noticing on its own. It started small the way these things always do. Jordan mentioned over dinner that he had run into Camille, Natalie's younger sister, and that she had asked about Marcus, not casually. Specifically, how is he doing, like really doing? Jordan told her the truth, that Marcus had quit the restaurant. That he was running his own operation now, that he seemed different. Marcus asked what kind of different. Jordan said, like someone who stopped waiting for permission. Marcus didn't respond to that. He just picked up his drink and let it sit in the air between them. 2 weeks later, he checked his LinkedIn and noticed a view on a post he had shared about a new client contract. The profile was unfamiliar. Barely used, 3 connections. No foe. He knew whose it was immediately. He closed the app and went back to work. Then Camille texted him directly, a Thursday morning. Sunflower emoji, "Hey Marcus. Heard things are going really well for you, so proud. Hope you're good," the kind of text that is not really from the person sending it. He replied that he was doing well, warm, short. He didn't ask about Natalie. He didn't need to. What nobody tells you about the rebuild is that the people who counted you out start doing the math quietly on their own. They don't announce it. They just start watching differently, a view here, a question there, a text from someone with no real reason to reach out. The rumors were moving before Marcus even knew there were rumors. And somewhere in a 22nd floor condo with a Range Rover in the parking garage, and a life that had everything except the feeling she thought it would bring, Natalie was hearing all of it. Marcus knew because he knew her. She was already curious. She just hadn't admitted it to herself yet. She called on a Wednesday night. Marcus was at his kitchen table working through a sourcing proposal. A plate of food he had actually cooked himself going cold beside him, when his phone lit up with a number he almost didn't recognize. He let it ring twice, looked at it. Something in him went still and quiet in the way things go quiet right before something significant happens. He answered, "Hi, Marcus." Her voice was the same, softer than he remembered, careful in a way it never used to be with him. "Hey, Natalie." She said she had been thinking about calling for a while, that she kept talking herself out of it. That she had heard he was doing really well and wanted him to know she was genuinely glad. He thanked her, he meant it. Then she apologized for how things ended, for things that were said. She chose her words carefully, the way people do when they have rehearsed something and are trying not to sound like they rehearsed it. She didn't mention her mother's phone call directly, but the apology covered it, and they both understood that without saying so. Marcus listened to all of it. He also listened to the spaces between it. The way she paused before she said Derek's name and then didn't say it. The way her voice carried something tired underneath the composure. The way a person sounds when the life they chose turned out to be a room that looked beautiful from the outside and echoed when you were actually standing in it. He knew without asking, Derek was gone. The 22nd floor wasn't what she thought it would be. The Boston dinners and the Santorini photos and the closing ceremonies and all the proof of arrival, none of it had felt the way she expected it to feel. And now it was a Wednesday night, and she was on the phone with the man she had once told wasn't enough, and she was hoping he had not yet become someone she had lost for good. She asked if he wanted to get coffee sometime, twice, not urgently, carefully, the way you ask a question you already half know the answer to but need to ask anyway. Marcus sat with it for 3 days. He thought about the man he was the night of that dinner, 26 years old. A server, $31,000 in debt. Sitting on the edge of his bed in the dark, with the word pasta turning over in his mind like something he could not put down. He thought about the parking lot, the therapist, the estate sales on Saturday mornings, Calvin and the 2 blazers, and the one sentence that changed everything. He thought about every quiet morning he chose to build instead of grieve. He did not think about Derek. Derek was never the point. On Saturday morning, he texted her. He told her the apology meant something to him, and he accepted it without condition. He told her he wished her well and meant every word of it. He told her coffee wasn't something he was going to do. Not out of anger, not to punish her, but because he had spent 2 years building something solid inside himself, and he was not going to introduce something unresolved into the foundation of that. He put the phone down, finished his coffee, went back to work. The door closed behind him quietly. No drama. No satisfaction. Just a man who had finally learned what he was worth and was no longer willing to negotiate on it. This time, he was the one who decided. And that made all the difference. If this story hit somewhere real, you already know why. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. See you on the next one.